Hi, how are you doing? Take a seat. I'll give you a drive. Don't pick up the ones on the chair. Take a seat. Okay. Okay, so today we are going to do a few things. I am combining lab exercises from the prior week because we are a 1 week behind because of the holiday. You are to download this particular lab 5. Okay. You're welcome to work with someone who you sit next to you. That's totally fine. Or you can use your own drive. If you just got here, I will give you a drive. Do not pick up a drive. Okay. Because I'm working on copying them. They take forever because there's forensic image that I need for my next class as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit before we get started. I think some of you already got started. So today we are going to do a few things. We are going to set IP addresses on the system. Let me download this. We are going to set up our server role to really cover your lecture from this week. So we will work a little bit with different virtual machines. So ideally, we want to close one and open another one because you are using the same IP address. We don't normally do that in the real world, but I only give you one IP address to use, and that's what you're going to use. So, because I don't want to confuse you, okay? So for today's lab, what we're going to do is we are going to start with Windows PC virtual machine. Some of you have seen this before as you've taken some of my classes before, or if you have used virtual machine in another class, you probably have done this. Now, all you have to do is you're going to start, but just read the instruction carefully when you do this, okay? So the virtual machines, I have created them because it takes a lot of time to just get them through, except for the Kali one that is downloaded. So you don't have to download anything. It's already been created for you, okay? So to start, I think, all right. We are gonna start with Windows 10. And Windows 10 PC, so I'm going to give it to you based on the order that you came in, okay? So if you just got here, you can work with someone while you wait, or you can, because I'm copying 3 at a time, I'm multitasking all over the place today. So you can find someone to work with for now. And then if you want to get your drive, that will be coming up shortly. Okay. So Windows 10 PC, you are going to open up your virtual box. So search for the app on When we're done, make sure we put your name on your drive because you are going to use it again. Okay. So let me get the other 3 copies for the next group of people. So once you're in VirtualBox, you are going to click the plus sign and you are going to navigate to your USB drive. I forgot to rewrite this, but you will locate CIS first before you find this. You need to locate CIS40A VMs folder. And it's going to be the hierarchy folder that you would see. So once you locate that folder, you're going to go open up your Windows 10 clone folder inside CIS40A. Do not use the other clone because that's for the other class. Okay. So open up your CIS40A VM folder, browse to that. and you will find your Windows 10 CIS40A clone. And then once you're in that, you're gonna be able to get the VBox file. So use the blue icon. I might put VDI, but that should be VBox. And you're gonna select that and it's gonna start. Once it starts, you're gonna log in using student or administrator account. I think student is on that one. And then the password is CIS40A exclamation point. So hold on, let me.
Hey, Professor,
Yes.
one of you popped up something about the image accessible and being
Okay, so you're gonna open up VirtualBox. Okay. You are going to click add. This, close this. Browse to your drive. Look for CIS40A VM. And then you are going to open up your Windows 10 clone. So unlike you, I have it on my desktop. So I'm gonna go here, open up this, and you're gonna click the VBox. It should work. Then click open. If for some reason your file is inaccessible, maybe you're clicking on the wrong file. So click input on the top and then click Control-Alt-Delete to log in. So once your virtual machine boots, right? Once we have the VBox open, okay. Password is on your CIS40A capital exclamation point. Are we good there? We're able to log in? Oh, why is it so long? Okay, so I have another one, should be done in less than 5 minutes. The other drive, it's taking, it says 24 minutes, so. Oh. So who still needs a drive? I think Richard does and you do. Okay. Maybe work with someone for now. And then as soon as I have a drive in a few minutes, I'll give it to you. I think Richard came in first, so. All right. So once it's booted like this, to enter the machine, if you don't see the login like this, you would choose input, right, keyboard, and then you do Control-Alt-Delete. Then you type in your password. And the password is on your lap. Okay. So once we have the machine booted, what we're going to do is we are going to open up our control panel by searching for it. So here's the control panel, and this is step 5. Okay, what you're gonna do is, because we are configuring, and you've done this before 2 weeks ago, you're gonna click network and internet. Okay, so I'm here at step 6. Then you're gonna go ahead and click View, Status and Task. And so this is step 7. Then you are gonna see the adapter. Now, even if you're on a laptop, when you run your virtual machine, it's gonna show the Ethernet option only. Okay, unless you specify and reconfigure. So to see my settings for my network interface card or the Ethernet card, I would click it. This shows me that it is connecting, right? It shows me the link speed and all of that. So I'm here. Once I click the adapter, I'm going to see the property sheets and I'm going to click the property button. Okay. Then you are going to select version 4, and version 4 is where we can put in our IP address. Use the IP address that I give it to you in your case. It says IP address. Do not use the default gateway. Okay, so we're going to go down, select version 4, click properties. And then when you set, I'm teaching you how to set static IP. So in the case where you need to set this on your devices, you know how. So click this and type in your IP address that's given to you in the case. And we don't want conflicting IP. That's why I spent time to stick all of those in the case for you. So the IP, they're all in different networks. Okay, let me check on one. Okay, just a few more seconds for one. And I have the other drives that are a little slower, so. Victor, are you working with all these or you're just using their drive? Oh, you work with all these? Okay. Yeah, I will, if you need a drive, I'll give it to you. Okay, so once we set our static IP, so let's talk about IP real quick. Let's say that I am using 172.50. Sorry. 172. Let's say that this is my IP address, right? This is a which class address? Class B, right? You guys are using class B today. How do I know? Because the subnet mask had 2 octet that is network identifier. So in order to make different networks, you would change up this value or this value, correct? So if your network IDs are different and each one of you is different, it puts you on a different network. Understand? So if I want to keep it the same network, I would keep the first 2 octet the same for the class default class B. So even if the last 2 value for the host is exactly identical for every single one, your network ID is different, it puts you on a different network. Okay. So you and your neighbor have different network ID on the second octet, which puts you on a different network. Now, the default gateway is always going to be your router, and usually most of the time your router is a .1. Okay, so we want to use the same network. So in my case, that will be 172.50.0.1. Okay, that should be the first one that you see coming in from the internet. So that's why it's a .1. Your DNS server is gonna be, now I put down the same number because we're gonna use the same information for the server. But whatever your server IP address is, you need to put that there, okay? In the second part, you are gonna make your Windows Server a DNS. So that's why I don't want to retype this multiple IP and confuse you. So what we can do is we can put in the server IP there. And so that way it can join that domain. So in order to join the domain, you have to specify at least one of the DNS IP here. Okay, if you have two server, you put 2. So let's say that I have a server. Let's say that my server is this, right? And my second server is this, right? So in that case, what happened is it's gonna go and find this server to connect as a primary domain. And if it cannot connect, I would have an alternate DNS there. Now you notice that my network IDs are the same, right? In order to join the domain, they have to be in the same subnet. That means that the network identifier, the values are exactly the same, right? The difference is we can have the last host value different if it's connecting to a different system. In the second part, when we're making the system itself a server, then it is exactly the same number. Okay, any question? Okay, so we put in the information. We want to answer the question there, what we put down. Okay, take a screen capture and paste it on your document. Then you're going to click OK. Then on the second part, remember we did PowerShell last week. So we're going to revisit it this week because I want to make sure that you remember how to do this. So in PowerShell, there are several ways that you can get information and set information. Okay, so once you're done with this, you click OK and then close. So what happens is when you set a static IP here, it is no longer obtaining IP addresses from the DHCP. Okay, so don't be surprised if it's not able to connect to the internet inside the virtual machine, right? In order to connect to the internet using MVC or RCCD network, you have to put it back to dynamic IP so it can obtain from the real network, right? So we're just using a arbitrary network so that way we will set it up. So in the future, if the employers ask you how to set IP address in Windows, you should know how. Okay, and how to be able to add your DNS and make it join. Okay, questions? All right, so we're done with IPv4, but notice that if you're looking at IPv6, it's still obtaining automatically. So if you need to set it static, same thing, right? We would click this option and fill this out. Okay, close. So once you set your IP, what you will do is you are going to open up PowerShell. And you would type in the command. Okay. So we talked about last time when we're using get-net IP configuration, that just simply giving you the IP information, correct? Make sure we type it correctly. Now on step 17, what I'm telling you here is that you can manually set IP addresses. You know how you just change that in the property of the NIC? You can do this in PowerShell, okay? So if I want to make my IP into a .101, I can, right? Okay. So you can use your IP address and then you can change up the last octet of the host and change it to a new number. You can. Okay. So this allows you to set a new IP address. So you would take what's old and replace it with what's new. So all it is going to plug this value into what you previously set and take a screen capture. Okay, so once we obtain the IP information, right, which is what we did here, or when you print it out, you display it, you should see it. Plug that value in here and then change it up with the .1. I mean the 101 at the end. So what I want you to practice is you can do it multiple ways. We have to know how to do multiple ways when we're setting and configuring. So I can do it through the GUI. I can do it through the PowerShell, right? Who needs a drive? No one? Anyone doesn't need a drive anymore? You need a drive? You're working with someone. Okay, so once we set the IP address, just take a screenshot. If you import it properly, right, it doesn't throw an error, then you did it well. If it throws red error, check your typo.
That one whole command, one line, or two separate commands?
It's one whole command, one line.
No space, space.
I could ask exactly how you see it. There's a space there and type of space. Okay, so there are two ways that you can do IP addresses. Okay, you can make it new net IP address, or you can set net IP address. So there are two ways that you can do this. The set command will let you do that. Also, the new command in PowerShell would let you do that. Now, different version of PowerShell, sometimes Windows, Microsoft, they would change up some of the commands. Okay, so make sure that we practice PowerShell and remember our commands. Question? Yeah, the whole entire line is the whole, you gotta type the whole line, people, whole line. Not separate lines, one whole line. This whole thing is one. This whole thing is one, okay? Because if you only type this, it's looking for additional options and it's gonna throw an error. Because it needs to plug into the variable for the program to be able to set it. So make sure we put in the whole entire thing. So you can take your old IP and change it to a .101 or 105. See if you can set a new IP address to it. Okay. Now on number 18, you're actually putting in the subnet mask when you do a prefix link. That means that you are going to do a CIDR 255.255.00. Capital, it's a pretty sensitive. Okay?
Oh.
So, new, I see. Address. Yeah. That interface index. INC 32 string is not in the correct format. So internet, so this I address, so internet information that not running industrial. I think the parameter on it might be up. Are you guys having issues with the new IP?
Yeah.
Do the set IP one. I know the set network. Let me see if they retired the other one. Hold on. Yeah,
I was able to do the first one.
okay.
So on the IP address from number 12, I just put the interface index number there, and I just put the new IP on after IP address.
You see what you did? The interface index?
New the IP address, interface index 6.
Oh, okay. So, thank you. What we want to do is here, you're gonna put in the interface index. That's gonna be your, remember that when you get this configuration, it tells you the index value, right? So it would be a number, like a 6, a 3, a 5. Look at your output. So if yours is a 6, put a 6. If yours is a 5, put a 5. Okay, and then we're gonna set same thing with this one.
No, interface index and then space.
Okay, that's why we output at the beginning. So look at your interface index value from number 13, right? Or I'm sorry, 15. It should tell you the index value.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Access.
case sensitive. So you gotta do new net, you have net, that's the typo. Type it as it is, new dot net. Typo. Sorry. Yeah. So whatever your index is, because that relates to your adapter. Okay. And then we can do the prefix length, which ties to your subnet mask. Save your screen capture and paste it, and then make sure we shut down on the inside first. Did it work for you guys? Are you on the inside PowerShell or the outside PowerShell? Close it, open PowerShell. Interface index. Interface index. Yeah, so.
Same when you were talking about.
Oh, the same. Oh, the same question.
Okay, so what's your?
Yeah. So basically, you get your interface index,
Index.
and then for IP address, just put, you can put a similar IP to yours, and you can put any on it.
Okay, thank you. These hyphens and there's a hyphen after that.
Yeah, after sex, IP address, then it's okay. It can be, as I said, it can be anything you're on the net.
Yeah, possibly. Option, pick out the space before the interface.
Okay, so why, I think my command is right, but now it's saying. Now it's saying like. Oh, why didn't you open it on that?
So some of you are getting permission denied, right? Because you are not running PowerShell as administrator.
Oh, okay.
So when you open PowerShell to set things, you gotta right click before you click it and run as administrator.
Save me.
Okay. If you're not on as administrator, you have to do run as administrator. Okay, so Andrew, so when you open up PowerShell, right? When you search for PowerShell like this, before you click it, you right click and run as administrator. And then it's gonna be a slightly different path, okay? Compared to before. Okay. If for some reason you have a challenge with 17, just do 18. Set net IP address space dash interface index. So I put the link on here for you. So if you have a hard time, go and see what Microsoft says. Okay, go here. There's all the command and it switches. So if I go down to new, right? New IP, if you click on it, it shows you how to set. So here's the net interface, modifies an IP interface. Click that and it shows you how. And I think they give you example in here. See?
Oh, are you setting it the same address?
You can set it the same, different address, whatever you want. Okay. So if you're stuck, if you're not sure how to type it, click this. Go to the documentation. It gives you a list. Go down to the command and click the command. It's always good to look at Microsoft documentation.
Yeah, we can talk about the. No, I don't. No, you know what? That's why.
Oh, 100, 101.
Okay, see how they show it here? Let me zoom in. Okay, if we can't accomplish this, so the way that you type it, right, like this, it will be 6, okay, dash IP address and then your IP address. And then for 18, we would do a prefix link. Okay.
I'm sorry, hold on. No, like. No. Typo. It was a typo.
Okay, how are we doing? Okay, the hard part's over. Okay, so today, right? Yeah, last week and today are some of the few times that we do PowerShell in this class for networking, but I encourage you to be able to do this, right? So we got to practice. The documentation show you all of these things, so you can go home, look at all the commands and try them out, right? And on PowerShell, and remember, we need to be administrator. Okay, any questions? So that was part of Windows 10. Once we're done with those steps, just go here, shut down. And then now we're gonna do Kali Linux. Okay. I already downloaded it for you. So you just have to go and open it up. Okay. So go to machine, add, and then go to your drive, right? In here, and you should find this and then click that, okay? You have to reopen PowerShell and right click it, run as administrator. So close it and then search for it before you click it, right click and choose run as administrator. Now you can run many virtual machines simultaneously, okay, as long as your RAM supports it. So if I have 4 virtual machines, 2 gigs each, I use up 8 gigs in my system for just VMs. Okay. So Kali Linux can be downloaded from their website. So once you have Kali Linux up, we would do Kali for the user and Kali for the password.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it took, it's fine. Unless you do get net ID again, then it should show you again. So if we want to confirm, right, arrow up a few times to or retype that command. So if you press arrow up, it's just going to repeat. It's going to cycle through all the prior commands. So you can go up to the ones that you previously typed. And then you should see your new IP address set. Okay. Next is going to be Debian Linux. So make sure we shut down Windows 10. So click the Windows button inside it and choose shut down, and it will close the window. Then browse and follow the steps to be able to open up your Linux. You don't need to go to application launcher. You can just go to terminal. So terminal is right here. Open up terminal. So this is Linux command line. And we can simply find IP address by typing IP address. So Linux is a little different in how it displays the IP address. The IP address is going to show as inet. Okay. So the version 4 is going to be here. For F0, that means Ethernet 0. That's the first card. It's always going to have a loopback address. All system does. All system calls home. It sees itself. Okay. And then it should have your version 6, right? Remember how we talked about link local this week? So you should be able to see that there. inet 6 is here. So this is going to be your scope for the prefix route. So inet 6, link local, link loopback, right? And then your purple is going to be your version 4 in F0. Yeah, click on the top icon. That's a dragon. That's your application launcher in Linux. This, the blue dragon. The white dragon on blue. If you want to search it, sorry, I think I wrote this for Ubuntu, so it's the same. So we can see, let me see, connections. Yeah, so if you can search for advanced network configurations, you should see it there. Okay. So on here, we want to search for advanced network connections. So if you double click the wired connection, you should see your F0, right, which is Ethernet. Your IPv6, this is where you can set it. We would put it to manual, and then we add an address. Okay. So click on the IPv4 tab. So we need to double click. Wired connections. And then click on the IPv4 tab. Set it to manual and then add an IP address. So what I did was I clicked the application launcher. I searched for advanced network connection, open it up, double click this, okay? And then I'm gonna go to IPv4 tab, click the drop down options and click manual. Then here I can add an IP address and then you can type in your IP address there. 172, sorry. Dot 50.0.1.2. Just use the IP I gave you so you don't get confused. 255. So this is the default class B. And then your gateway. Network ID is the same. But the last octet's different. Once you're done, you gotta click save. Okay. Okay, so once we set it, we come back to terminal, we type in IP address again. It's still seeing this, so we will probably have to flush it because even if you set it manual on Linux, right? Previously it obtained this, so it cached this information already, right? So I can go back over here. I will go to IPv4, right? See how I set this manually? That's typical for the Debian Linux. When you set it, right, you gotta flush this address. So I have to eventually clear this out. Or you can restart the system. So once you restart the system, it should take effect. Okay. This is okay. Any questions?
I'm sorry, Professor, for number 5, where's the system setting?
Which one? Oh, yeah. So here, click this and then just search for it. Right. So once you search advanced network connection, this is the system setting.
Okay.
Yeah. So once you get here, you would double click wire connection and then go to IP version 4. Double click this and then go to IPv4. Then choose manual and then add an IP address. So just like Windows, you can add in the DNS, right? So in Windows environment, you can renew IP address by, instead of doing ipconfig /all, you would say ipconfig /renew. Okay. But all else, we can reboot the system, and if you set everything manually correctly, it should take that effect. Okay. All right. So once we go through and set our IP, we can search for IP address. Now, this shows you how you can add IP address using command line. So you have to be a super user do. Sudo means that you elevate your privilege to a super user. And you can do IP address add and this. So you add whatever IP that you want to add. You can add 102, 106, and that will be your subnet mask cider. We want to say def, and whatever your ENPOS3 is, this is gonna be like it matches your output from, I put number 6. It needs to match your output from the prior, where was it? Yep. Which step are you at?
Manual, 7, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9B. 9.
You set your IP address? Okay, so your net mask, your gateway, right? So you're here, you're here, you're here. So what class is your IP address? If it starts with a 172, what class is it?
Oh, that's the thing.
Yep. Click save. So if we are using 255.255.0.0, what class is your IP? Okay, so answer that question here. Enter your default gateway, click save, take a screen capture for your lab submission. Then I'm gonna go back to my terminal, right? Click the terminal here, and I would type in IP address again, right? I said this before, that it's gonna still go and obtain the IP from RCCD, even though we set this, so likely we will need to reboot the system in order to take effect, right?
We use what's on the box or
Yeah,
we use what's on the box?
so if you type in 255.255.0.0, it is gonna give you 16-bit CIDR. Okay. Okay, so if I add this, right?
Oh.
I click here, and if I type in 255.255.0.0, right? You can do that, or you can put in the net mask as 16. That's the CIDR.
Oh, wait, no. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, I didn't forget it. Always right. Not earlier, didn't know what time it is. And I can see that's called a loop back.
Save. Okay, any other questions?
Oh. For EMP 0S3, when I try putting that, it says cannot find device EMP 0S2.
So you have, I put a note there for you right here. It says replace this value and make sure it matches with whatever that you previously had. So
Oh,
when you look at this right here, right? You have to find, just like how you had the interface ID earlier, find the interface ID for the address. Okay. So what we have here is, it says sudo IP address add. This is the IP address, and then this is the subnet mask def ENP0S3. So make sure that this is matches with the, I put number 6 because I added this to the second one. So let's see. For this, if I'm looking at my IP address, right? This is my F0. And what your non-prefix route is F0. So try using the actual ID for that interface. Okay, F0.
F0. Okay, now it works.
F0. Okay. When you get here, replace this with EA. Now on Ubuntu side, it uses a different value in that, right? It uses the ENPOS, but yeah, whatever your interface value is, how do I know that? Well, if you do IP address, it tells you your interface right here, right? And the IP address information. So just use your interface ID. Type open terminal, repeat the step that you did earlier and open and type IP address. Yeah, so repeat step 4. You're welcome.
Oh, there it is. Oh, that's the one. Oh, yeah.
Does it show the one that you enter? The INET 4 number, is it showing the one you enter or it's still 10 dot whatever?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, because what happened is it's still caching that information. So likely we will have to reboot. So don't need to reboot. Just understand that when you set IP addresses, it might not check them back right away. Right? You have to restart the system and then making sure that you check. So, or it could possibly be that we have to check a certain box or enable certain things. Okay, so typing in the IP address and saving it in Linux doesn't necessarily check effect right away. That's what I'm telling you. No, that's not. Okay, when we get to step 14 and 15 in that section, make sure we change it to F0, ETH0 for Ethernet 0. All right. So 1, 2 down, right? So when we get through that, when you're done, shut down. Now. I love Kali. It's so fast to shut down compared to the others. Okay, so shut down now, and then it will close the virtual box. I actually use the data center for you guys. Okay, any question? Are we okay with part 2, part B? Now we gotta hit the server part, which takes a little bit of time, so we will probably go close to 5, okay? All right, I already did the installation for you, so all you have to do is we are gonna do a few things that before we install your rules. Everybody okay with starting C now? All right. So same thing, we're gonna go here, right? We're gonna click machine, add, go to your drive. In my case, I have it on my desktop. Open up Windows Server 2019 again, and click on the blue icon where it is a .vbox file, and then click open. Okay. So when it boots, just let it do its thing and it's gonna give you the desktop. Now, server, when you did in the installation, on the image, there is one that doesn't have graphical user interface. It's purely command prompt. The second option, so when you do the install, if you want desktop, you're gonna make sure it is desktop. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to use command prompt. So when we get here, remember, click input keyboard, Control Alt Delete, and this shows up. Same password as the other, CIS40A, exclamation point. Now, we don't normally shut down server. Server shutdown is when we do maintenance. So when you shut down, you gotta tell it why you're shutting down, so it logs it. Okay? So a quick run through server 2019. This is very similar to 2016 and prior. They modified the toolbar a little bit. Shh, listen up. I don't like to repeat things 5 times. So let's go through this. This is your dashboard. Everything that you need to configure is going to be in the server manager. If you don't see this, it's always going to be under the tools option. Okay? So if you, and of course, we can search for everything on the newer Windows now, right? So everything that you need as an administrator is in tools and manage. Okay? So if I want to make a new server role, so a server is just a machine. What we would do is we would add different responsibility as roles to the machine. So when we are doing DNS and DHCP and all of that, those are just separate role on a single system, or it could be multiple systems. All right. Once you have your server started, right, in your server manager, when you see this, right, Microsoft makes it so easy for you to do this. Okay, you are going to click add roles and feature, this link. All right. Then what we're going to do is we are going to go to the wizard. This is the wizard. It's going to tell you here that this is where we can enable services. Click next. Most of the time, you are always going to use the role base if you're physically next to the system and doing this. Unless you're doing it remotely or using remote desktop, then you would choose the other one. So we're going to click the default and go next. Okay. The important thing is we cannot use dynamic IP on server. Again, we cannot use dynamic IP server on, so we must set static IP. Just like what we did just before on Windows 10, we need to do that now here. This is a dynamic IP that I obtained from RCCD by default. I don't want that, right? So when you get to this part, I want you to note the information. What is your server name? Because that server name is going to be important when you promote your system. Okay, this is the default name that Microsoft gives it. So we normally would define our server name, right? Like branch 1 DNS or branch 1 domain or whatever. But type this out. And this is the IP address that we obtained from RCCD DHCP. Okay. So before we proceed, okay, this step right here, it's very important that you follow through the steps and make sure that you set your static IP. I do not want to help fixing the problem that we can prevent down the line. That means that we have to do this properly. Otherwise, in the future week, you're going to have a hard time with other areas of the lab. Okay. So once you go through this, right, what we're going to do is we are going to proceed with this. And at one point, it's going to make you change your IP address. We're going to go next. So what you want to do is we are going to select the role. DNS stands for domain name server. This allows the system to take the URL, which we will give it, right? The domain name like www.my net.com and convert it to an IP address. Okay, so any network, you usually would see that there would be a DNS. So we would select the DNS. So here, what you would do is you select this, okay, and it's gonna add all the features that you need to manage it. So we're gonna click add features. All right, and then we're gonna click continue. So it says found a problem server, want to install features, continue, click continue. I'm gonna uncheck the file and storage for now. Oh, it does that by default. Never mind, because it's data center. Okay. So we add the feature and then we're gonna go next. Okay. In the next step, we are gonna proceed again. There are some server that you have to set other things here, like web server, you have to do IIS hostable stuff. And then next, wizard is really easy, but read what it tells you. Okay. So here, write down this. Or here. So it asks you what type of services is integrated in the DNS. Oh, I'm sorry. What was it? Yep. So what type of services should be integrated in a DNS server? It tells you here that Active Directory requires DNS server to be installed on a network. So whenever that you install DNS with Windows, you would always have Active Directory domain services. They're a different part of Active Directory. So what it does is it creates a role for the server to be able to manage all the services that pertain to that network. Okay, so that will be one of your answer. Active Directory domain services. Can you install DNS while install Active Directory services? Yes, you can do them together. It says it, right? You can do them together. So most of the time, if you install a new server, you do both of these two together. Can you do them separately? Yes, you can. Right? Sometimes you would see separate system doing separate things, but usually those two stay together. And we're gonna go next. Okay, and then we're gonna click install. Now, installing doesn't mean configuring. Doesn't mean actively working. Installing, what it does is it's going to enable the feature and the files that you need for the server. Okay. It is not fully integrated until you fully configure and activate it. You will see. So when people say installing server to me, that just means that you go through the wizard, you click next, and probably enter a couple of things, and that's it. So when you put things on your resume like installing server, that's what it means to an IT manager. So if we want to say that we know how to manage a server, you would say install, configure, and manage server. Okay. So after today, you should be able to state install DNS on Windows Server 2019. Okay. And then configure and monitor DNS in the future weeks. So this process take a few minutes. So once we're closed, we are going to change up our IP address to the one that's in the box. Okay. And then update it. So when you do that, what it's going to do is we are going to set it up. Now, Okay, the reason why I do it in a later step is that it's probably easier for you to go through the process. But in practice, you should always start out with a static IP first. Okay, remember how I show you where you can see your IP address? You should change it right then and there. Okay, but going through the wizard, you can always go back and change your IP, because once you install Active Directory services, okay, once you promote the domain, if you need to change your IP address and your system name, you gotta demote it and then change it, because it's stuck to that IP. Okay, a lot of complication. I've taught this for about 15 years. So sometimes when students mess up and they mess up the IP and they change, I make them reinstall all over again, because it's easier to do that than to actually reconfigure, and because you got to demote as well, might as well just uninstall and reinstall. Okay, so that's a lot easier, because once you promote a server, there are a lot of configuration that's tied to the IP address and that computer name. Okay, because that's how other systems are able to find it. And you don't go and change IP address frequently. So that's what we want to do, is we want to do it once, and that's going to be the same throughout years. Okay. Any question? So I'm done here, right? I click close. So on the dashboard, you are going to see local server. Click that. Okay. See how it tells me unknown, 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 right? Because we're not done. All of these things need to be proper. Okay, so it takes a second for it to go. And it tells me here that IP version 4 is assigned. So I have an obtained address. I don't want this. I want to change it to a static IP. Okay. So once you have your local server interface up, you're going to click this Ethernet adapter. Click that. And then you're going to right click this and go to properties. And this is how you change IP address on server 2019. Just like before, we're going to go down to IPv4, click properties, and then modify it. I'm going to use 60, but use the one you're given. You don't have to input the subnet mask. If you click on it, it filters out the default subnet mask, and then your gateway is a .1. Same everything except for the .1. Use the one that you're given in the box. And then your DNS is going to be itself. Okay, so the same as the top. And we only have one primary, so just leave the other one blank. Any question? And we're going to click OK. So now again, we only set the IPv4. If you want to change, make static for IPv6, you can set it, but we're not going to touch this right now, right? Most of the time nowadays, you have to do both. You got to set both, but I'm only going to work on the IPv4 with you guys this time. Okay, so click close. Okay, and if you want to make sure that it is the right IP, we do ipconfig on command prompt, right? And you can check. Okay, or when you go here, if you refresh it, it should take effect. Okay, there you go. It takes a second. So you click dashboard and click back to it, it should show it. Any question? All right. So this part is done. Take a screen capture. Since we already installed DNS tools is there. Okay, so place the tools there. There's my DNS. So in the next step, after you screen capture the IP address that you set, you're going to click tools at the top and then DNS. This is where you need to manage everything about DNS. Okay, it's always going to tell you your server by name. So if I have 100 server, I would see it all listed here if they're all connected. Okay, there is no hierarchy yet, so we don't have a parent domain or anything. We're gonna promote them. We're gonna promote the system. We're gonna elevate the role to make it a domain controller. Okay. All right. So you are gonna, in the DNS, you are gonna right click the server name on the left side and you're gonna choose new zone. Right click this and then choose new zone. Sorry. You gotta expand it because it won't let you do it without expansion. All right, any question? Okay, so as we're making a new zone after we set our IP in the DNS, you are gonna go next in the wizard. This is where you're gonna set your domain name, right? You can put your full name.com. Okay, that way it's easy to find. That's just, but in reality, it will be your company's name dot whatever, .net, .gov, .edu, etc. Okay. So we are going to use primary zone. And if you read it, it tells you that the primary zone create a copy of the zone directly to this server. The job of this server is to interpret IP address to the domain name or the fully qualified domain name, which is yourfullname.com, right? And then we can go in reverse. Okay, so we want to be able to set up the primary zone. So anything connected to this, if I seek for yourfullname.com, it would be able to pinpoint the IP address. Click next. We are only going to do forward lookup zone. Forward lookup zone means it's going to go from your DNS name, which is yourfullname.com, to an IP. But if you want to go in reverse, we would use an IP address to DNS name. Okay, so go next. So we are going to keep primary zone, forward lookup zone, and then here is where you're going to put in your zone name. Okay. And you can name your zone anything that will be applicable. And then we're going to go next. So what it's going to do is going to make a DNS file called your zone name, right? That's what we just named it. And this file is used to associate IP to your domain. So when a system join my domain, right, it's going to reference this file to locate my domain. Okay, and who's allowed on it. Go next. Okay. So once we have the new file, right, we don't want dynamic updates. So select that for you, go next, and we're going to finish. So what you did is you established a forward lookup zone for your server to be able to find, right, to be able to locate IP address to the fully qualified domain name. That's what the DNS does. Okay, and we only did the forward lookup zone. There's nothing under the reverse, but you can set up the reverse. Any question? We're going to come back to this and we're going to talk about these records. Okay, because these are very important in security. You can get your DNS attacked if you don't protect these. How it resolves the name. Okay, Then we're gonna add another role. And now we're gonna do, remember I said earlier that you can select both of them and do them at once, right? But we're gonna do them separately. So I want to show you, you can do them separately. So we can close this, right? We're gonna come back to our dashboard. We're gonna click add roles and feature, go next, role base again, go next, right? This should be, I don't know why. Hold on one second. Let me- Yeah, I don't know why it was showing, it was caching that information. I was like, why is it showing that? All right, we're gonna go next again. And now we already have our DNS. See how it's grayed out? It shows install. There are a few Active Directory things. Make sure that we select the right thing. So it tells you here, right, that you are going to select Active Domain Services. Okay. Active Directory Domain Services. With that, it's going to add in all of these things. PowerShell, the tools that you need, right? The administration tool. Okay. So the feature, oops, the feature, we're going to click add features. And then we're going to go next. Okay. Now, you should ask me, what are the other stuff for? This is for certificate that would be tied to encryption, security, and other area. Federation services and other things that would pertain to other subdomain management. So for now, we're only going to make this one domain controller. So what you need is directory domain services. You're going to go next, right? And here it tells you to proceed to the default selection of the feature. And then we are going to keep the default selection. So it's going to add GPM. This is where your answer is. It says ADDS stores information about the user, the computer, and other services on the network, right? It helps administrators securely manage the information, facilitate sharing resources. So it stores this, right, on the network, on the controller. And it tells you how many domain controllers are recommended and why. So if you look right here, okay, it says ADDS requires a DNS server to be installed, and we did that, right? You will be prompted to install DNS if you have it. And installing a minimum of 2 domain controllers for a domain. So normally you would have a primary, which is called a PDC, and a backup domain controller, which is known as a BDC. This is really important in administration because this has been around for decades. PDC and BDC, they're usually by default 2 domain controllers, 1 primary and 1 backup. Okay. All right. Then we're gonna go next, and it's gonna add these tools for me, and we're gonna install. Like I said before, installing doesn't mean that it's fully done. It just put the tools and the files that I need. I have to configure it. And this takes a few minutes. So when we're finished, make sure we put our name on the sticker, either in the front or somewhere you can see and to find your drive next time. Okay. Brought a pen in here, now it disappeared. Up here. You can use your own pen. So when you're done, bring it back up here. You put your name, the next lab where we work with server again, where we have 2 other labs with this. So we have to get it to where it's finished with ADDS, okay? Because in the future lab, I'm gonna pick it up right where it was. We would do other roles and associate those roles to our Active Directory. So we do have a CIS40C that addresses Windows servers and roles and things like that. In addition to this, we also have a CIS4DD, I think we're offering this semester, that covers Linux and Windows system administration. Okay. So when we're finished, right, we will click close. You see this exclamation point? That's your notification. You want to pay attention to that, right? So it tells me that it requires this service to be activated. I haven't promoted, I just install it. So when you finish installing ADDS, click on the warning and you would see this link. This allows us to elevate the role of your server to a domain controller. Okay. Every web server, every website you see out there requires a DNS. Okay, so every time that you see that, you see a DNS because DNS, its job is to connect the web server to the domain, and that's how when you do the own domain host, yeah, you basically buying a space on that's associated with the web server and the DNS server. Okay, okay, so we click the warning and then we want to click the link where it says promote this server. So click this right here. And so now if I don't have that, I can go through the process with my server manager, add a domain controller to the existing. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to make a new forest. We are a brand new enterprise environment. So you are going to start with a new forest. Now, the other options are if they already have something existing and they want to add additional server, then they would select the others. And you will need to find the other server. So you're going to select this option right here. Sorry, mine is like thinking. So click this. All right. And then we want to have a root name. So we would use your root name. So the root is actually this, right? But your domain is your fully qualified domain name is gonna be whatever .com or .net, right? So we can come back here. Okay. Now, if you have old server that you need to add to the network, this is important because you need to make sure that it sees it. So 2019 will see some server that's 2016, the prior version. But if we can't roll it back too far. So what I tell you here is after you set this and you go next, you're going to keep the default for the controller options, go next, and then you're going to select 2019. Okay. Mine is like slowly thinking. Next time we probably need to vamp up the RAM on the server a little bit. The Windows, the other ones are okay. It's a little slow. So your functional level, make sure that you select 2019. What that is it works with the server with that version. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, 2016. Keep it 2016 is fine. And this is your recovery password. So in case your server crashed and you need to recover your backup image, right? That's the password. So we technically in the field, we would use a different password. But for this, in case, we are gonna just use the same CIS40A exclamation point and then repeat. So it tells me here that I haven't finished the delegation. And in this, what that is the zone that we set up, we need to delegate it for a specific area of the network. So we are gonna go next to do the delegation, and we are gonna make sure that we also resolve by name, not just the IP address. So did I say select? Yeah. You can always come back and redelegate. I don't know why mine is like super slow. Yeah, I think it's the RAM on it. So your NetBIOS name is okay. It's gonna fill that in because that's part of your fully qualified domain name. Okay. So at this point, we're gonna go next, and it's gonna give you the path. You want to screenshot that. Okay. So this is important for security, people. Listen up. This is where your log files for your DNS is, and your sys volume and your database. This is where so in a DNS attack, they're gonna look for these things, and you can actually alter the DNS server files if you have access to it. And the DNS control a lot of things in the network. So we want to make sure that we use secure DNS. So that means that these folders need to be permission control. Okay. So if you do an audit for your server, if these are not, it's allowing other people to access, make sure you limit the access to others. Okay. Go next. So here it tells me I haven't had the delegation, right? So once I screen capture, go next and install. So it gives me the summary. All right. So once you get to the install, just wait for it. It should be like 10 minutes at the most. And then type out the answer. What did you learn by completing this lab? Right? How can this lab concept be applied to network administration? Okay. And then save and submit your work. It's due on Sunday, but you can submit it early. So I want to pay attention to some of these warnings. I need to come back and redo the delegation. I need to also enable cryptography for, some of the earlier version. Otherwise, those old server might not work with my system, and so on, right? So it tells me these warnings. So we want to make sure that we come back to those things. Okay, so we did 3 things. We used 3 different OSs today. Windows 10, Kali Linux, which is Debian based, Server 2019. We configure a few of the roles. We looked at how to set IP addresses manually. We use PowerShell. So what I recommend is after every week or every class, you should make a list of the things that you learn in class. You would put those things on your resume if you're comfortable doing it. Because a year from now, you will forget what those things are, right? If you don't use it every day. But I recommend we do this every day, okay? So we would get comfortable. If you don't, if you want to know how to install server, right, on virtual machine, you just need the ISO and it's super easy. I covered that in CIS25. So your teacher in CIS25 should also teach you how to do that. To install OS. All right, let's do attendance while we wait. And then when you're done, it's gonna restart, right? And at that point, you wanted to let it restart and then you're gonna shut down. But when you shut down, you're gonna select the reason why you're shutting down. Okay, because it does put it in the log. Servers don't get shut down. And then I gotta finish posting stuff for my next class. So when we finish, the drive goes back. Make sure we put our name on top of it. Because the next class, they're gonna use the drive as well. You learn how to add server roles, right? Promote your server to be top of the forest in a domain. We'll come back to that. You learn how to set static IP address on Windows and Linux. You learn how to install ADDS. When people see that, they know, right? Windows Server 2019 ADDS, Active Directory Domain Services. So AD is very important. A lot of jobs look for people who knows how to manage it. And again, you can also get Microsoft certification. So once your system boot up, right, wait for it to load, log in, and then shut it down. Yeah, I think that because the RAM allocation on this, I forgot that it's server. So next time we're gonna give it 4 gig, okay, to make it a little faster. But server boot up and shutting down is really depending on the processor, right? We're on a single core on a virtual machine with the 2 gig of RAM is gonna make it a little slower. So, but the other ones with the 2 gig should be all right. Okay, let me stop recording. Yep.